and welcome to season 2, episode 4.
Is it really?
It must be 4. It's 3 or 4.
It's 3 or 4.
Oh, Enchanted by English. We're having so much fun, we've forgotten what we're doing. We're today joined by Olivia of Nutbourne, and you'll see that we are not in my kitchen or Becky's living room. We are actually on site right now at Nutbourne. The vines are behind us. I'm going to put some shots up of those onto the video as well, so you can see that. But thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to be on our show today. It's really great to have you here, and we're looking forward to chatting all things Nutbourne and tasting one of the wines. So we'll get on to that in a moment. We're going to start as ever with the English wine news, which is this episode.
We're rebranding as Nutbourne News.
Nutbourne News. So tell us, what's happening at the Vineyard at the moment?
Well, we've just done a dosage trial that you took part in.
We did.
For our blush rosé.
Yes.
And that will be the 2022 vintage, and we're going to bottle it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So put a few thousand bottles, fill them with wine, and then label them and get them ready to release later this month. And those will be available from the cellar door and in our restaurants in London.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that.
We love the blush. We've got some in at the moment, and it's our best seller of all of Nutbourne's wines. So we were really excited to be given the opportunity to test the different dosage levels that they were debating ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see that it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. The differences are quite slight between the different wines. And if you're not familiar with the term dosage, it's the amount of sugar and the amount of sweetness that goes into the wine. And it's sort of done at the very end of the process, really, to get the final balance of the wine right. And they were all quite similar, but we sort of disagreed. We were generally in agreement.
Which is us, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
let's face it.
I know. We agreed that we love them all, which is always a good starting point. But
and we actually really had to think about it, because that's the first one we've ever done. And so when you're going through, obviously Olivia talked us through how to do it. So smell first, then go through to the taste, and go, one side to another. But obviously Olivia didn't tell us which was the kind of sweeter side, which was the drier side. So we really had to, well, I did anyway, really had to think about it.
Yeah, you did.
And it was really tricky to pick the favourite, because they were all really nice. Yes. And in the end I chickened out and I just said, this end is my favourite. But as I said, we were completely different on taste, but that is us. So that must mean that we genuinely did like, the either side.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's always interesting to compare zero dosage
yes
and a kind of raw wine just before it's filtered for bottling, and then adding in a whole 8 grams per litre to round out and match the acidity and the fruit that's in there.
Yeah.
So they are very different styles. One's much more European to go with food, and the other's very much for the restaurant, sitting and sipping in the sun, which is what we went for.
Yes. So. Yeah, my kind of wine drinking. So anything else happening at the moment? What else are you guys up to?
Well, we have our first supper club next week, which celebrates seasonal produce. So 4-course meal paired with wines, and that's got Nutbourne tomatoes from 2 fields away, the other side of the vines. Yeah. Our own beef from Gregory Gladburn's cows, and a pickled magnolia vinegar, which is a really deep pink from the beautiful deep pink petals of the chef's tree. So that's going to be made a beurre blanc, but we're calling it a beurre rosé. That will go beautifully with asparagus. So we're very excited about that. And we'll be serving some reserve wines from Peter's cellar. So 2018 Sussex Reserve and our first Pinot Gris. So we're going to share that with the locals that are coming to support us and turn up and come to this first one.
Very jealous.
So
sounds incredible.
Booked out, but we've got more dates coming this
summer.
I
was just going to say,
so
can we come
there? First of many? Or?
Every Thursday evening we'll either be doing supper clubs or burgers and bubbly with our own beef in the lodge.
Oh wow, okay.
And the burgers and bubbly is Nutty Wild with our own beef, which is what we're tasting today.
Yay!
So, yes.
Amazing. So on that then, you mentioned obviously that tomatoes come from that away, so close you could see it, and the magnolia petals come from the chef's actual plant. And so it seems like it's really environmentally friendly because it's all things you're growing yourself or are, you know, a couple of miles down the road. Or so talk to us about why that's important and what do you guys do here that kind of supports that sort of ethos, because I think it is an ethos of everyday thinking. How can we help the environment? How can we be sustainable? What can we do that's local? So talk to us a little bit about what else you do here that supports that.
We have a very holistic approach to sustainability. So we've completely reviewed all our packaging. It's all recycled. As we just spoke about with Peter Gladwin, we're discussing our bottle weights and how when we move forward, we can look at the weights of those to bring that down. Glass is a big factor in sustainability for wine. We plant mustard seeds in certain plots to improve biodiversity, and it also helps to fix sulfates into the soil.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
Wildflower meadows in and around the vineyard. You don't need them because the vines self-pollinate, but it's fantastic for biodiversity. And the plot right at the bottom adds a little bit of breathing space between our old vines from 1979-80 and the newer plantings from 2018. So in that lovely plot with the big oak sculpture, we've put a little breathing space between those old vines and the new vines, so one can establish and one can carry on producing a fantastic yield. We're very, very conscious on things like our spray programme. We keep that to a minimum. In the winery, it's very low intervention winemaking, which is how Nutty Wild came about. And things like we employ locals. You have to have a very holistic approach. So although we don't have the sustainability accreditation for Wine GB, Peter is overviewing it at the moment and having a look at how we can get everyone who's already thinking in that way to come on board and share what they're doing and talk about it. So I don't know what that's going to look like. They're going to release results very soon. But sustainability is very much what we do here in a very holistic way.
And as you're talking, I can hear a bee flying around like, hey, it's great here.
But the Gladwin family that own it, that's their approach to everything. That lovely phrase, what grows together goes together.
Yes, it's so true,
very
isn't it?
Into foraging and making the most of what the season gives you.
Which these beautiful flowers came from just over there as well. And some obviously more sort of field type flowers in there as well, which have been foraged, which I mean, beautiful.
And some from Bridget Gladwin's own garden.
Yes.
She's very creative. And it's her paintings behind us from the Bacchus series that we can see. These have just been put up in the lodge to add a touch of colour for a wedding that we've got coming up. But also they're just beautiful. Love them.
So is one of these on the Bacchus?
So these ones are portrait format. But if you go to one of the restaurants in London or look at the Bacchus, you'll see that there's a long painting as well in the landscape that shows the whole bridge, and from that one is the Bacchus label. So these are the small little portrait ones from the whole series.
Lovely. So tell us a bit more about that, because anyone who's not familiar with Nutbourne won't necessarily know that all the paintings on the labels are Bridget's own.
Yes. So, for example, the Nutty Wild series, you see a portion of the painting on the label, but we have these art cards. So I've got one to show you, which show the full painting, which she ran through her iPad and did lots of different colourways of. So if you have any from our Sparkling Nutty series, the Nutty Vintage, the Nutty Wild, or the Sparkling Vintage Rosé from 2013, Nutty Blush, they will all have that painting on the label, which is the vine in winter. The Blush label, the wine we were speaking about, that's the vineyard in high summer. So the plot behind the winery with all the beautiful tall trees. The hedgerow label is, she took the remnants and ends of all her paints up onto the downs, had 5 canvases, gave herself an hour on each, and then went back over to finish them, and all of those colours worked together. So that was one series. The new Nutty Blanc de Blanc that we're releasing was from a collage series where her art group went and did a very Matisse style ripping paper and then overlaying it, and it came out with a beautiful monochrome with what looks like a bird through the middle. So that's that painting. So each painting has a story, and her art group are very proactive. They'll go out to a church that they like the look of, or a wildflower field, immerse themselves for a week, and then she'll come away with some beautiful paintings. She doesn't paint for the labels or to commission. We go and look through all of her paintings and say, right, for that wine, the 10.5, very light and delicate, beautiful pale yellow colour, that painting will work beautifully. And then we have to say, can we please borrow that from one of your son's
Yes.
houses to photograph? Because if you go to any of their houses, they're all full of her beautiful artwork and colour and light,
wow.
and they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
So she's a very talented artist, and
Gosh.
flowers, and
very creative.
does all the cakes for our tours as well, and everything else. So
I'm just getting
everybody
this, like,
needs a Bridget in their lives.
yeah, like
She's
absolute
real treasure.
yeah. I'm just getting this real like family vibe as well to everything that happens here. It's all very much loving and like kept in house, and everything is this one sort of creative family's you know vibe, really.
It's gorgeous, isn't
It's
it?
so nice to have that through everything, because you do get brands of big, you know, winemakers or wineries or you know, whatever you want to call them, that have a very much, oh no, that's the brand, that's how we do things here, and it can
almost become
crush.
quite corporate.
Yeah, it can crush any
Which is really
creativity.
strange when you consider it's farming.
Yeah, and
Very
winemaking
much
is
so.
a creative thing, isn't it? You have to take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know, as we were doing earlier, sugars, flavours.
Yes.
It's so personal.
Yes.
And like there's a wine for every person, every palate's different, every wine is different. So why shouldn't every vintage be a bit different? Or, you know, it's fascinating.
Or every vineyard and their approach.
Yeah.
I have to say, a lot of the vineyards that I've visited, so my colleague Caroline, who's gone off and planted her own vines as well in her garden from
Wow.
vineyard visits with me, we like to go and visit and see what other people are up to. And actually, even at big ones like Rathfinney or Whiston, when you bump into Kirsty Goring, she talks about having chips with sparkling, or you go to Artelium and their passion for art means that they've just put in an installation. Actually, you kind of see that bleeding through, and that's what makes those lovely brands that endure.
Yeah,
is that you get that there's a passion for it, really
and
coming
that's
through.
their own personality coming through.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's wonderful.
But you're right. If you wander around here, you're very likely to bump into a Gladwin.
Yeah.
The last year we've had Oliver here making some beautiful dishes because we're doing a vineyard cookbook that will at some point release. So he's been here making beautiful, colourful feasts with local produce. Peter is very much on the tractor, making sure it all looks absolutely beautiful. Gregory's spraying when he's not with the cows. He'll be in the winery doing everything that Owen has asked him to do.
Yeah.
Richard is often here, and we do tastings together, and he's very much involved in the wine as well.
Yeah.
So he will mention the type of thing that's going down well at the restaurants.
Yeah.
And then Bridget is the constant force behind it all
Yes.
that inspires them.
Oh,
Yes.
how lovely.
Gosh, family goals, right, isn't it?
Yes. And you've got the next generation coming through. We've had a beautiful photo posted recently of Champagne Lagache, a house that very much helped Peter when he was setting up the hand disgorge line here, came over with their daughter, who stood with Imogen Gladwin, and the two of them held a bottle from each house together. It's like, this is the next generation, possibly, of winemakers or restaurateurs coming together.
Lovely.
Which is really sweet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very much family business.
I
Yes.
love that. Now I'm thinking, we're talking about it lots. Should we open?
Yes. Would you like me to?
Thank
Be
you.
honest?
So what have we got here? Talk us through it. And obviously some people are just going to be listening to us instead of watching us. So yeah, explaining colour, explaining, you know, the mousse and all of that sort of stuff as well.
Okay, this is Nutty Wild
from
our sparkling nutty range. We produce still and sparkling here. So the nutties, the sparklings, make up a third of the production here. Year on year that varies, but that's what we aim for essentially.
Yeah.
So the first press, Nutty Vintage, is what you call a classic English sparkling, but the majority of that blend is Pinot Noir, and then it's rounded out with Chardonnay and Pinot Blanc. This, therefore, is the second press, so it gets a lovely blush tint from all of that Pinot Noir in the blend. So that it came out lower alcohol, low intervention, 10.5%.
Yeah.
With all of that colour and the bright strawberry and raspberry fruitiness. So the winemaker owns it, don't need to do anything else to this wine.
Yes.
I'm going to leave it as is. So we talked about just doing a dosage trial.
Yeah.
This is essentially dry. It
Yeah.
doesn't have anything else in it.
Wow.
It has beautiful bright pink label.
Mm-hmm.
They say Wild was named for a wild party.
Like
and
that.
because it's low intervention, it has a naked fastening at the top, so it's just a red cage. There's nothing else on top of the bottle, so it's easy to open.
Yeah.
There's a fantastic word that Peter uses a lot: quaffable.
Yes,
this
love the quaffable.
Is the wine.
And
that
actually,
we say
I saw on your tasting card it says "an anytime drinking fizz," and I love that because it's like it should be for celebrations, but it should also be like every day is a bit of a celebration. So it's just like anytime, what's happening? It could be anything. This wine is a great wine to drink.
It's Tuesday afternoon.
Tuesday afternoon, and we're at the Vineyard.
Yeah,
Might as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
We've got great company.
Yes. So
that's precisely it. So you mentioned that this wine definitely is part of the holistic sustainability ethos in Nutbourne, and you've explained that it's the second press there. Is there anything else about this wine that makes it unique, or anything more sustainable about it?
good question. I would say the low intervention was applied afterwards. There's that approach of tasting and saying, what does anything need doing to this? No.
Yes.
So that's what we call low
fabulous.
intervention.
Yeah, so it's like letting the wine do the work.
Yeah.
And then
for
does
itself.
the wine need any help? Yes, no, we'll go from there, sort of thing, I guess. Yeah, and this wine was
And from
done.
that, a great wine starts in a vineyard.
Yes.
So if you have good fruit and the second press comes out as beautifully as this,
Yeah.
you don't need to do anything else to it.
Yeah.
So great winemaking does
Gorgeous.
start in the vineyard,
Yeah.
and then you lead from there. It's still a classic method wine aged in the bottle. For less time than 36 months, you would give a regular classic method wine, so it's at least 18, we like to say.
Yeah.
36, our Blanc de Blanc is going to have had 5 years on these.
Wow.
Yeah. So in that way, it's not no different in that it's classic method sparkling. If anyone dares to ask for Prosecco in the restaurants in London, Richard Gladman says, no.
Get out.
You are nutty wild.
We'll
This
call
is what
you a
want.
taxi.
Okay, so this is what you would recommend to a classic Prosecco drinker who's used to, I guess, a more light-hearted style, let's say.
Fun.
All the big floaty bubbles of Charmat.
Yes.
When we have tastings, and everyone's been met in the lodge, they've had a wander around in the sun in the vineyard, come back to the winery, and they're greeted in the winery with a glass. They're greeted with this, and sometimes they just go, oh, that's what I wanted. And you go, that's quite a nice thing to hear. And definitely people come to us after the tasting and say, what was that one that we had in the winery? You go, that was wild. And they go, oh, okay. So it's special because you wouldn't normally expect a wine like that to have such a reaction. This had to be the wine for the burgers and bubbly. This is the wine the locals come by and say, I think I'll go for 4 cases. We need to have some in the house.
Yes.
Of course you do.
Every occasion.
A minimum of 4.
Yeah.
So
fabulous.
it's fun. It's meant to be fun and light. It's not meant to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So that's
good. I love that. Not all wine should be taken too seriously.
No. Sometimes. But then the thing about wine is that wine and memory are so important.
Yes.
And when I first came to this lodge, probably about 3 years ago on the nose now, and met Peter, he sent me away with a bottle of this and offered me the role here, and I sat in the garden with my mum drinking this, going, this is quite nice. So I associate
I could get used to
this. I associate this wine with being offered to join the team at Nutbourne. So wine has very strong memories.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've just had a glass poured, and it's the most beautiful pink colour, but it's not bright pink, as you say, it's a blush. It's got this kind of salmony tinge to it. Bubbles are, they're definitely there, definitely going a little bit crazy in my glass at the minute. They're excited. So
you don't call this a rosé, do you?
No, we go with the word blush.
Which is, okay, fine. Because this, I would say, is darker than the rosé that we were just tasting outside.
It's a little bit darker,
Yes.
It's a real rose gold, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I love that smell as well. It's like soft stone fruit, like juicy. I feel like I'm about to bite into it and juice is going to run down my chin.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Like a peach.
Yeah, like properly ripe. But there's
or nectarine.
Yeah, I don't get any of that sort of crunchy. Sometimes you can smell a wine and it smells crunchy almost. But this, it smells really lovely and
because
fresh, fruity. Yeah,
Pinot-led blend. It's more the ripe fruit than the bright, really green of the apple.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cheers. Ladies.
Cheers. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming to visit Nutbourne.
Can't wait to have a taste.
This is a real treat. It's always a treat for us to sip
Oh,
the
that's
wine
lovely.
in the vineyard or right next to the vines. It's a really special experience, and that just brings me back to the message that we do try and put out there most weeks, which is visit your local vineyard, go and experience it for yourself, taste all the wines. You know, you don't have to invest in all these wines and buy them all. Go and taste, find your wine, whichever one you like the best. Get to know the people, go to the events, do it all, because it's wonderful and you will not regret it. You'll love it. You'll find a new favourite. It could be the Nutty Wild.
Do you know what this takes me to? Because you know when you like take a sip, as you're saying, like it's very much a memory. It should take you somewhere. A wine that you're really enjoying is like, is it going to take you to that friend's barbecue? Do you really want to be sitting in the sun sipping this or whatever? This is like strawberries and cream, Wimbledon, bright sunshine.
Yes. I can see that.
Lovely. Like this is what this
picnic.
I want to be there.
Vibes,
you know, that's where I'm being transported to.
It is fantastically summery, but equally when we have our Christmas tastings,
Oh,
we've got
yes.
the braziers going on the forecourt, you're serving mince pies.
Oh, with mince pie. I see.
This is one that people ask
Ooh.
for. They're not going for that classic sparkling.
Amazing.
It isn't any
That's
time
so
drinking
interesting.
wine.
They want something to complement those sort of like clovey spices, cinnamony, and so they go for this. Oh wow!
Oh no,
The
I would pick
acidity
the
always
vintage
wins you.
personally, but for a mince pie,
I feel like I could only
actually
only
rich,
comment
yeah.
if I tasted both back to back.
That's
I'm gonna need 2
You
glasses of
interview us
wine,
another
2
bottle.
mince pies. Yeah,
Yes.
then I'll make my mind up.
Sure,
that'll
we
be
can
a
rustle up
tasting
mince
for
pies
winter
in
then.
Yeah.
Mince pie pairing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so what else would you pair this for then? In this sort of season, like if someone wanted to pick this bottle up tomorrow and, you know, from the experts, know what to pair it with.
I think the wonderful thing about English wine is that we make it in that very English way to drink by itself.
Yes, so
and
true.
A lot of our wines, like our Sussex Reserve, can pair beautifully with huge flavours, curry, big spicy foods, but equally by themselves can just be sipped on and enjoyed.
Yeah.
And this definitely is one that you can just have by itself.
Yeah.
When we're having weddings and parties, this can very much be the canapé wine or it can be the toasting wine. Because it's just so easy and drinkable.
Yeah, that word quaffable again is coming back to my...
Yes.
As I'm like, sip, and agreeing with everything you say.
So we very much have the approach with wines, particularly English wines, is that they do all have that wonderful linear note, normally acidity through them, and then the big flavour, and they can be drunk by themselves. But then the food pairings, particularly this, is quite light.
Yeah.
So you could go with like chickens, with like salads.
Yeah.
In lockdown, we did some lovely art cards because we were sending wines out to people that hadn't necessarily been to the vineyard or to the restaurants. We wanted them to have something. So each wine has one of these, and it's got tasting notes and always a fanciful pairing suggestion because it is a foodie family that own the vineyards that have.
I love these cards
catering
because they're
companies.
different. So a lot of other vineyards will do tasting cards. But some of them can be overly technical, and it's like, this is how much cold stabilization, or, you know, you're like, well, what does this even mean? Like, am I going to like drinking it? Or but yours, they obviously have the beautiful artwork, but they talk to a drinker. So they're like, okay, how am I going to expect this to be? Oh, here we go. It's like for a consumer, I think your cards are. That's really nice.
Yes, I agree. Some, like you say, some will come with tasting notes by professionals, for example, that can be a little difficult to translate.
What was one that you read out the other day? Like a
electrifying,
and that like
just you read it and you were like,
what does that mean?
What?
Yeah. So is
What
it
does it
strawberries
taste like?
or raspberries?
Yes, help me out here.
Yeah.
I do like those notes that have an overarching sense of what wine should be.
Yeah.
And some people really appreciate knowing how dry a wine is and how that's affecting their perception.
It's so personal, isn't it? Like some people love the technical, some people don't, and they want something else. I think we're of a place now where we appreciate them for what they are, and sometimes they go too far, and that's when we're like, what does that word even mean? Maybe that says more about us.
Well, this is designed to be like you're at the cellar door and we're just chatting to you about the wine.
Yeah.
So it's just something to look at, particularly if someone sent a wine as a gift.
Yeah.
don't know what that recipient wants to be able to just open it up and go and almost enhance their experience. So this one says a great drink for barbecues, buffets, lighter meals, or pan Asian delicacies, which is quite vague.
Yeah.
But equally, it can pair with quite a few things like salmon, canapes.
Yeah.
Oh
lighter
yes, but
things.
this
Smoked
is another
salmon,
thing
really.
though. Some people will say this pairs really well with wild mushroom risotto. Full stop. End.
Like,
Yeah.
that is
Okay,
what
so
you must have it with.
I have to make a wild mushroom risotto immediately if I'm
Or
going
like
to enjoy this wine.
A such and such foam, and you're like, well, I have no foam
Yeah.
in the house. So you're like,
Yes.
oh no. It
Yes.
does send a bit of panic through you sometimes, doesn't it?
I might get in trouble for saying this, but when I drink wild, I always have frozen strawberries and raspberries in my freezer anyway for having for morning smoothies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't like putting ice in wine.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. I know some people really find that it enhances their experience, but
Each
I
to
will
their
put
own.
a frozen strawberry or
Yeah, I've
raspberry
done
in
that
with the
before.
wild,
I
and it
like the
really
idea
enhances
of
the
that.
experience.
You can
I
do
like
that. I know
You
they
get nice boozy berry at the end.
Yeah, they do it
Yes.
in gin as well, don't they?
Yeah.
And you can actually buy boozy berries that have been soaked in a gin
Can you?
already,
I didn't
so
know
then you
that.
can add it to your gin. Yes.
Frozen.
They come in a jar, but I would then
Okay.
freeze them
Yeah.
and pop them in because I like, you
Oh, I
know,
like the sound
if it's
of
a summer
that.
drink, I do want it to be cold.
Yeah.
So
And it
I'm
keeps
with
it
you.
cold.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you on that. It's frozen.
I was more
fruit.
thinking from the Pim side.
Oh yes,
So you have that
Pim
nice
season.
fruit at the end of the
Yeah,
Pims.
yeah, you do, don't you? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, yum.
So you've got a nice kind of raspberry in the bottom of the glass
Yeah.
that is really tasting wild.
Healthy.
Yes.
Healthy.
Vitamin
It's
C.
all about balance.
God. We're here to live long, happy lives.
So it's named for Wild Party as well because it is something you
Love
can serve to your
that.
guests and know that they can carry on and have a nice time.
Yeah.
Not low, 10.5%, and
Yeah.
that will creep up. So it'll be 11% on the next wine.
Okay.
Increasingly hot
Okay.
summers mean
I was going to
Yeah.
say, is that just the
More
weather?
difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
So what
to keep that
vintage are we
down.
tasting now?
this is technically non-vintage,
Oh,
but the
sorry.
majority of it is the
Will have
21.
been- yeah.
So the
That's
next
fair enough.
batch, let's
Well,
say, would be 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's technically non-vintage.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
very easy drinking.
So on the other end of the scale, away from the wild parties, I noticed in the office that there were a few royal pictures and royal accolades or things on the wall. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So Peter and Bridget Gladwin own the Vineyard, and he did have a catering company called Party Ingredients for years that catered for lots of the liveries and guilds in London and all their banquets, has done a few of the Jubilee banquets, the V-Day banquet in 95, which is those beautiful embroidered invitations that you can see on the wall. And yeah, the last Jubilee banquet as well. I've just touched my microphone. Probably had a big boom. But equally, we had a tiny wedding here 2 weeks ago for 17, and he did a beautiful presentation table and carved Gregory's own beef that had been cooked in the wood-fired oven next to us, and then served it up with béarnaise and local asparagus and dressed it beautifully with marigold petals from the garden. He does presentation absolutely beautifully, and they will taste fantastic as well. But food is very much part of what we do here.
Very important.
And the supper clubs, the burgers and bubbly are just an extension of that. Our staff parties.
Oh God.
Last year we were lucky enough to be taken up to Black Lamb in Wimbledon, the newest restaurant. The year before, because it was warm enough, we sat around a fire pit, drank from a magnum of Nutty Blush, and Bridget had brought up a big array of local Sussex cheeses, including a large round of blue that we just dug into and scooped out cheese from.
So jealous right now.
Food is just part of the culture here. You wouldn't bring a Boots meal deal to work. It's not what you would do.
So do you have any job openings?
We've actually got a couple of people joining us for the summer.
Oh my God,
So there's
amazing.
a Kiwi who's kind of earned his stripes out of Vineyard in New Zealand that we're linked to Dog Point that
Yes, yeah.
send wine over for the restaurants.
Yeah.
So he'll be joining us, and then there's a girl who's just graduated from marketing in York. So again, they'll get the overview, which the lovely thing about Nutbourne is that you see everything. I've been taught how to prune, but I'm too slow, so I'm not allowed to. The two Romanian ladies, Jean and Deandra, mother and daughter, who maintain the vineyard much quicker than me, so out there bud rubbing at the moment.
Yeah.
So you see the whole vineyard.
Just
life
explain
cycle.
what bud rubbing is then, because
sure.
we do like to try and break things down for people that maybe don't know.
So this time of year, we've had bud burst. We're just about through frost watch, making sure that none of those buds are damaged overnight with our diurnal temperatures. Earlier this year, it dropped to -6, but that was before any buds had come out, so we don't think that's affected us.
Yeah.
But what's happening now is the vines are exploding with new growth and colour.
You can
in front
see.
of us at the moment.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
That's Scott Henry trellising with its 2 cordons, so 2 rows of green. It's just gorgeous. But it doesn't just explode into life where you'd like it to in your fruiting zone. It does it all the way up and down the trunk as well sometimes. So what they're doing is you wear welder's gloves because they can take that repeated rubbing of the vine. Anything else just wears through, and they're rubbing off any buds where we don't want them, essentially. It helps to.
So if they're too far down, I think I've seen like a little machine as well you can get that like rubs up and down and basically breaks off what you don't want to be there, so that the growth then or the energy of the plant can go up to where you want it.
Where you want your fruit to grow.
The very basic way of
and also it's also to do with keeping that trunk healthy, as I understand it. Bearing in mind that my background is digital marketing, so I very much learned about it all here. I was at an Italian wine company before, but they do things quite differently there as well. Here, when you take the buds off of the trunks and that wound then seals, it can invite infection.
Right.
You've got sap and other things rising as well. So part of that is maintaining the health of the plant as well as focusing where you want the fruit and your canes to put all their energy and growth.
Fantastic.
It's actually too vigorous here when you talk about growth in the vines. So we're green sands over sandstone, south facing with the downs, making us a nice little microclimate, so we're not maritime. We're always about a degree and a half this side of the downs warmer than we would be if we were the other side or on top of the downs. Which is why we can do still wines directly south. So that lovely long ridge that you can see.
I was going to say, is that what I can see over there? For everyone that's listening, it looks like a big hill. In the most basic term. Which helps to, I guess, protect everything, keep everything warm, as you were saying, give the vines a little bit of extra help.
Our microclimate or our terroir is part of that. So
and I guess that's why you have so many other vineyards so close to you, right? Because they also benefit from that microclimate.
4 on our hill alone.
That's crazy.
So Night Timber's original manor plantings are just up the road. Ambriel, Wendy and Charles Reithwaite just up the other side of the road at Redfold. So the lakes from their property run down to ours. So that's where we have we let everything grow wild with irises and lots of rare wildlife and things like that. And then you've got Smock Alley, the very small cooperative where their wine is made by Whiston. You can see Chanctonbury Ring over there. So we're surrounded by vineyards. Wine country, you might call it.
It really is, isn't it? And it's so stunning. So just on people visiting, presumably there's quite a lot of places to stay around here, B&Bs, hotels, that sort of thing. I'm just thinking
more and more.
Basically, for a selfish point of view, how could people come and enjoy Nutbourne like we are? People like me, maybe me.
Tell me where to go.
That don't want to drive 2 hours home again because they want to enjoy the wines. Where should one stay?
The Windmills had many lives, and at one point we've been told it used to be a B&B for Bernardo's children as part of the charity. Lots of different iterations and lives since it was working Cornmill. Unfortunately, you can't stay there.
No.
But there's some beautiful spots that you can walk to from us. There's a very famous one called the Pump House that was featured on a television series. There's a gorgeous little barn, Gay Street, but there are so many more kind of glamping sites as well as beautiful houses around us that send people to us, and equally we tell people to go and stay there. So a lot of the visitors to the cellar door that come for tours, picnics, cheese boards, whatever they fancy coming, or just following the trail to see the alpacas, they come to us from places that we've left leaflets, and equally if they ask us where to stay, we'll send them to those places. So we have a lovely relationship with all the people around us. We're not going to be introducing accommodation into our own vineyard anytime soon, because it's a very small team. But equally, it's a lovely thing that, especially since lockdown, there's a lot more places to stay in the area, and we get lots of Dutch teachers coming
Wow.
to stay, and they've got this route planned out that someone over there seems to have given them, and they start over in Kent,
Right.
and they'll stay in each county, and they end up at Camel Valley in Cornwall. So you seem to be following their own kind of trail, and I need to find out where this has
more
come
about
from.
I need to
this.
do this trail. Oh my god, like wine
It's
road
not-
trip.
And it's not an official trail in any way, but someone has kind of mapped out where to go and given them all notes, and so they all seem to turn up with these lists, and it's in Dutch, so I can't quite work it out.
Yeah.
But a lot of them seem to be tapping into English wine and tourism. It's a lovely place to visit and experience.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And they're very much, some of them will go, I wanted to only go to the small producers, so
Yes.
us, and others wanted to go to the big producers, so they will have maybe messaged them and arranged those by appointment visits.
Yeah.
So it's lovely to see people coming from all over the world, not
Oh, I
just
love
from
that.
London or
Yes,
the local area
yeah.
to visit us.
And you're right, since lockdown, there has been a shift, I would say, in people's knowledge of English wine and visiting, staying, even just tours and tastings, because people have thought about it a bit more instead of just going, oh, I really want to go to Amalfi, or, you know, like all those amazing tourist spots. They perhaps had a bit more time and were kind of forced to stay local as well some of the time. So yeah, I think it's really amazing that people are staying a little bit more local, you know, going a couple of hours or whatever it is, as well as then coming from further afield. That's amazing. Men
of a certain age who would always go to Burgundy, buy their cellar for a
Yes,
year, and now staying in England, discovering English wines and telling their friends about it, and that's a lovely thing. But you get all ages, and it's a fantastic thing. You've got people that are just coming to drinking age and wanting to be sustainable and support local business, and then you have others that have been drinking wine from all over the world for years and just discovering English wine. And you always have your influencers, the people that go first, like you, and go in tastings and then share them and report back, and then you see this ripple effect. And one of my favorite ones is the son-in-law looking to impress the father-in-law.
Okay.
So they come and do a recce and they discover all the wines, and they maybe just take back a bottle and then suggest that they come back for a tour and tasting. And they already know it, and they can share all the information they already know. And
that's a really good idea.
It's a very certain demographic, and I love seeing it. I love seeing them impress the father-in-law.
Like, here we go, there's another.
Lovely.
Or the couple who have just got engaged and are looking around, and they've sorted the big things. They've got the dress, got the venue, got the band, and then they get turned to the wine, and they go, oh, maybe we could go English, and they'll go on a tasting tour and try a whole lot of different sparkling and still.
What a
and
great
then
reason to get married.
Make a different. And they'll either go hyper local, or it'll be based on what they want, what style they want. So
and it's personal to them as well. They can maybe keep a few bottles for you know, anniversaries or special occasions down the road. And oh, I love that.
And and the lovely thing for us is repeat customer. If you've got married here, it's lovely to come back. So in a couple of weeks, a very lovely lady who got had her wedding reception in this lodge is coming back for a picnic with the wedding party to celebrate. But they bought a few bottles of the vintage from the year they got married.
Oh,
so
lovely.
When those are released, they'll have them. And then they can celebrate with them over the years.
Oh, I love that.
So
it's really meaningful.
So many people discovering English wine, coming at it from different ways, and you've got those lovely bars, particularly in London, that are spreading the word with hipster crowds. Or if you go to Kinsbrook next, as I understand it, and they're very much bringing down the London crowd to the area. So there's lots of different people coming to English wine. It's a fantastic thing. Oh,
I love that. Like, it feels like a community, and that's what we've always, you know, sort of tried to get together, is this community of people that just really love wine, love the environment, love local produce, to come together, and we just share what we found and hope that other people enjoy it too.
I think it's something that we felt along our whole English wine journey, isn't it? Like, the moment we stepped into the industry, we were like, oh, there's this actual community here, and now we're a part of it. That's wonderful. And it's probably our favourite thing of all of it is getting to know all the people,
and everyone has different interests and different wines that they're very focused on, and that's the fantastic thing about our young industry, that we can be experimenting with all these different wine styles. But the one thing everyone's got in common is a real passion for it.
Yes.
I mean, anywhere in the world, anyone that works in wine is pretty passionate about it, and it's a wonderful thing to see.
It is. So what advice would you give to somebody who's new to English wine or English sparkling wine in terms of getting to know what their thing is, or what approach should they take when exploring the world of English wine?
To drink or to work in the industry?
Oh, let's go with both. Let's
Okay.
start with to drink.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they're exploring what they would like to start drinking with, they should just have a think about what they already like and look for similar styles. For example, if they're a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc, they should try Bacchus, which is called the English Sauvignon. So whereas Sauvignon has that distinctive gooseberry, we have the elderflower that comes through in the stone fruit, and often you do have to use those comparative words and say this is like an English Burgundy or this is like an English Sauvignon to get people over the hurdle of understanding what the style is. But once they've taken a sip, they go, oh, that's Bacchus. And they don't call it Sauvignon anymore.
Yes.
They say, I like Bacchus.
It's just a bridge.
Yeah, it's a way to get them in.
Yeah, I like it.
And our field blend, Sussex Reserve, which are all those Riesling style varietals with Pinot, is mostly Bacchus, but then we press and ferment them all together. So it's much more complex. And
Yes,
a herby, grassy finish.
Yeah.
And we serve that to people on the tours down in the old vines.
Oh.
And they're very much the taste of the terroir and drinking a wine where it's made and the whole what grows together goes together ethos. They just close their eyes and they go, it doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
So visiting vineyards, as you say, is a lovely way of discovering different wines and understanding how they're made as well. But equally, something like getting a mixed case from you and saying, I know I like rosé, I'm going to get a different mixed case of different English rosés and compare them and try them and make some notes and understand, right, I like that style, I'm more of a very light Provence style, or actually I like something a little bit sweeter. And it's just applying what you already know about your palate. If you know you have a sweet tooth and you're the one that could polish off a bag of Cadbury Dairy Milk or something, you should probably go for a slightly sweeter wine. We have one called Hedgerow, which came out with fantastic big fruit flavours and acidity.
So sippable because it's got that extra sweetness. It leads you wanting more and more, and it is like, oh, that's a bit nice. Or it's like you can't have one Malteser, isn't it? You know, you have to finish the bag. It's the same thing with Hedgerow.
But the thing about that is, we treat that like a dessert wine, even though it's not, and then we'll serve it with quite tart summer pudding. So they counter each other, and it brings out the fruit. So it's also understanding what you want your wine for. If it's a celebration, you're probably going to go with the sparkling. So I myself, although this is probably the only non-vintage wine I prefer over a vintage, I know I very much, if I'm trying a producer's wines, I like the vintage style. I'm not as into the blending library style. But people might, if for example the only wine they've had is a Night Timber Classic Cuvée and they love that, then they could go for non-vintage blends and start exploring the more appley led styles and go, oh, I love that Chardonnay, why not I try a Blanc de Blanc and move on from there and progress. So do you do tasting guides for customers that are learning about English wine?
We do a sort of a gentle guide on our website. So if you click on Chardonnay, for example, it might say it's very similar to a white Burgundy or that sort of thing, so people can get that sort of similarity, but we don't go any deeper than that. But it might be a good idea to
do a tasting journey and say, right, start here. But we do wine flights at the cellar door, so I will talk at someone about the 10 wines we have at the moment, which is going to be 12 by the end of the summer.
Wow.
And you can see them going, it's a lot of information. So what do you recommend? And I'll go, right, okay, for us, introduction to our white range, start with the single varietal, then have the blend, and then have the oaked wine. And they come back and they already start talking like they've been in this world. And they go, oh, so I really like the oak element in there, the single varietal more than the blend. And you've given them that lovely little introduction, and they're already getting their head around what it is they like in a wine. And then sparkling, you'll say to them, right, we expect you to be 50-50. One of you will like that big classic method English nutty vintage. The other will probably like the wild. I will say, right, you can, and it's nice to challenge gender and say to the men, usually you would like the vintage and your wife would like the wild, but you might surprise us. And they will come back and they'll go, I like the wild. Go, lovely. And we go, no, I like the vintage. Go, that's fine, that's your style. So men are always interested in English red as well.
Mm.
Women are too, but there's something about an English red that they'll come up to the cellar door and say, I'm going to have a glass of red. And you go, fantastic. And they go, oh, it's quite good actually. And
it's a surprise, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a nice surprise for them to come back and go, oh, it's not what I thought an English red was. And go, no, they've come on fantastically.
Yes,
and
they really have.
Most glasses of red that you drink, you're going to like.
Yeah.
Knowing what to expect from them as cool climate reds.
Yeah.
You have to tell them it's not going to be a big super Tuscan.
Yes.
This isn't going to be the one to have with that kind of Italian meal. This is an English one, so you'd have it with English produce. Yeah. And then it brings it out.
And what about the wine industry then? Because obviously you work in the wine industry and have done for a little while. So how would you say to people to get into, maybe they really like English wine and they want to take it a step further and want to work in English wine?
As soon as we said that, I thought, well, I'm not an authority on this at all. But I think most people that I meet are in second career. Yeah. Or they've done something first and then they bring that skill with them. And it's almost in two halves. You get people coming from Plumpton who've always known that is what they'd like to do. They go and get the qualifications and the base level, and then they'll go off and get experience and do different vintages, and they'll very much have that path that the careers advisor at school will tell you to do to get into English wine. It's definitely the production side. But then equally you get people who in London are working in buying and selling and start with French and Italian and New World, and then they discover English wine on that journey and want to move closer to the English wine industry. So they'll then maybe start working closely with a producer and what you call move client side or company side. We'll see marketing showing through there. So I worked for a company in Richmond who import Italian wine and had this fantastic wine club where the excitable sommelier doing his diploma would say, I've learnt about Riesling. And we'd say, Mattea, tell us about Riesling. And then the accountant signed off in the name of training some lovely bottles being opened. So we could sit there and have 10 bottles of Riesling. I think we paid £10 a month for this wine club. And then the chef would make some beautiful dishes and to pair with them. So we'd learn about pairings. And her sister was Tamlin Curran, who writes for Jancis Robertson. I'll tell you what she said about Weil actually in a minute. But that was my introduction to the world of wine because I was selling it. They sent me on my WSET level 2 course. And that's just what a sommelier would do, really. Basically help you talk about it in a restaurant. So that was my introduction to it. And I think those courses do help anyone thinking about going into wine to start to think about which element of wine they would be interested in. And here, I joined for the summer of 2020 and have been here ever since. It was to learn because they grow the grapes, they make them into wine, they sell the wine directly to customers and trade. So it's the whole industry. So I then was going, well, this will help me focus. And I realised my background is also hospitality. I quite like doing that part of it as well. So that's why it's such a lovely place here. But maybe doing one of those courses if you started to, whilst in your other career, think wine might be for me, is probably a good way of helping you to decide which part of wine you would like to go into.
That's really good.
So definitely one of the courses would help. And it also gives you some credibility from our point of view.
Exactly. There's a base level then.
For winemaking assistants. For example, if they've done a couple of vintages somewhere, fantastic. If they've done courses, taking the time to sit down and learn, that shows dedication as well. So, and I don't think anyone should ever worry about not having experience. Again, it's that passion coming through. If people are really, really keen and interested, it comes through, you can tell. And you're giving them a chance. So
absolutely. Oh no, that's great, thank you. And then just lastly, I'm just looking at time. So something that we talked about on our last podcast, which was about the future of English wine. Where's it going? We had just a fun chat about just our predictions, got our little crystal balls out and thought about where it's going. So obviously no one knows. It's all very personal. But for you, where do you think, 5 years time, 10 years time, doesn't matter, just put your finger in the air and think, like, I think it's going here. Where do you see English wine going in the future?
We're in a really interesting time with the PDO system being reviewed at the moment.
Yes.
So that will guide what some producers do. So sparkling will have to be picked by hand to reach that highest level. So where some people have maybe invested in a machine harvester, they'll go, oh, right, okay, that's going to gauge it.
Interesting.
But because we're so open and people can really experiment with different wine styles and different grapes and different markets as well, and it's a growing industry, export is going to be the next interesting market. Because if you're, for example, if you're looking at sending your wines to Norway, they want you to have PDO accreditation, so they have some mark of quality, so they're rest assured that when the government buys that wine and then distributes it, it's going to be worth their time.
Excellent.
But they expect that type of accreditation that France or Italy or Germany gives to their wines. So export is going to be a really interesting market, because in ourselves we're currently quite open and we can play around and do like the Fitz Charmat wine, for example. But there's so many plantings that are going to mature and have the grapes picked off them. The first Domaine Evremond vintage is coming out next year. That the export market is going to be really interesting.
Definitely.
We already have visitors from Japan coming here wanting to buy everything that we produce, which we don't want to do.
Yes.
So we say to them that we're very happy to welcome you here, but we don't have anywhere near that volume. We're at the top end of a small producer. So you've got the big producers, export, smaller producers, really interesting experiments with new grapes like Voltis, new champagne approved variety. How that comes through and whether people use that for sparkling or still. I'm not a winemaker, I'm not a viticulturist, I don't work in either, but there's what the customers ask you for as well. And the Pinot Gris that we're releasing, people have always liked a Pinot Grigio, and they're incredibly excited by it because they know and like that wine style.
Something they're familiar with.
Exactly. So those wines that people aren't as familiar with, it'd be really interesting to see what happens with those as well. Sauvignon Blanc might be introduced into the sparkling, and if it is, that might be really interesting to see as well. So they're all little small things. Bigger picture, 5 years time, who knows? It's so changeable.
It's evolving really quickly as well.
So quickly, isn't it? I feel like it's picking up more and more momentum. It's like a big boulder going down a hill, isn't it? It's like someone's pushed it and done the effort to push it down, and now it's just going faster and faster and faster and faster. So it is a who knows.
Oh, I can't wait to see what happens.
Yes.
You were discussing red sparkling.
Yes.
We get customers asking about that.
Oh,
all
really?
The time,
Wow.
which is so fascinating. I think it's my
interesting.
phrasing. I say we have still sparkling red, white, and rosé, and they go sparkling red. And oh, hang on.
Yeah. Should have paused for a bit longer.
Yes.
So I don't think it's dictated by customers. I think people will make the wine that they like. Just Preserve, Peter's love letter to Bridget. It's a wine that she likes. He'll always make that wine. So you've got to balance all those elements of what the customers would like, what you like to drink, and then somewhere in the middle, something that you all like.
Yes.
So there's like the dosage trial.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually have a little top up to enjoy because it was delicious. And obviously you can buy the Nutty Wild from us or from you guys, Celador. But definitely one to try.
As well as the rest of the Nutbourne
Oh
range.
yes, the whole range is delicious.
Yes.
Hence why we're here.
Excellent value as well.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that's everything from me.
No, absolutely.
What Tamlin Curran said about
Oh,
the
yes.
Oh
Nutty
yes.
Wild.
Oh, I'm gonna top up and then also taste at the same time because I think this is going to be interesting.
Go for it.
So she grew up in what was then Rhodesia, is now Zimbabwe.
Yes.
And she describes this as those, like the relief that people felt when they tasted it in the winery.
Yeah.
Just after that second flight of the day had taken off and you knew you didn't have to pick them up or drop them off from the airport.
Right.
It was that feeling you could sit back in your seat and relax.
Okay.
But she also described it as having prickle and wire, which was when you talk about fanciful wine tasting
hang on
notes.
a minute, what?
But then
say it slower.
all of the other words that we've spoken about, fruit, smooth, quaffability, fruit, it does still have a light edge. There's that acidity and citrus in there, and that's what the prickle and wire that she describes, and that's what
seriously,
adds
say that
character.
slower. What are you saying?
Prickle and wire.
Prickle and wire.
Yes.
Okay. I thought it was a like French word.
Oh no! I mean,
Prickle wire.
most winemaking terms are French or Italian or European. You can't get away from them. But
Prickle and wire.
prickle and wire.
I get it because it's like the bubbles are like pop, 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 and then the wire being the crisp acidity running
There we
through.
go.
Okay,
It
yeah.
works, it works.
And that's why I had to take a sip and think about what should I say. Try and
My made up
we
words.
do just need a
together.
translation. Prickle noir.
I mean, it could be
Saying it.
now.
You could say it in that way if you like. Prickle
Prickle and wire.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers.
just
Thank you
that.
so much.
Yes, thank you.